a bit of bullshit there, really. Still, okay. Well, we'll jump in and have a chat about all the different things. Shall we start with United because we've both got double up in attack, and we've also got Luke Shaw as well. We've basically got the same 3 players, and they've obviously massively underperformed. I don't know if you heard as well, but they had a closed door friendly today against Burnley to prep a little bit because Burnley had a game and they lost apparently 3-0. I know it was I heard it was the reserve
United
team.
lost 3-0.
Yeah, United lost 3-0.
Okay, it was reserves, right.
I heard that it was mostly reserve team, but Martial started. Apparently that's the only main first teamer, and just I don't know, it feels like there was so much positivity going into the season. They had a good pre-season, those 2 good games in game weeks 1 and 3. They barely won against Wolves, God knows how, and obviously looked like after the first sort of half an hour from the highlights they got comfortably beaten in the second half by Spurs. So I suppose just before we dive into any stats and chat about it like that, what were your initial reaction to Bruno and Rashford in that game, I suppose?
Well, they looked good. I mean, obviously no FPL points blanks, but they should have got points. Bruno could have had a massive haul. He obviously went through for that header, should have scored. Obviously, Rashford should have scored. He was just offside, but he should have scored from a Bruno assist. I think Casemiro hit the bar off a Bruno assist. So there's all those things where Bruno looks like he should be getting hauls, and obviously the next fixture looks good for it. So for me, I feel like Rashford is more of the one I'd want to remove. But it's a classic case of sort of selling before a plum fixture. Like I've done that before, and it's backfired quite badly at times. So, but at the same time, Rashford is not looking particularly good or in form. So it's a really tough one this week, though.
Yeah, it's really difficult. I think you're right. I feel like both their expected points has been decent. They both, I think, have I think Bruno has 10.8 expected points and Rashford has something like 10.2. So the fact that they woefully underperformed that does make you think that surely they can get it on track. But the longer they take up that budget in our teams, and I don't know, a multitude of players who cost less than them are overperforming them, it is a worry. And I think just United in general, you're right. I feel like the XG is there. So they're the second worst underperformance of teams in the first 2 games for XG to goals. They've had an XG of 3.5 and only scored 1. So they're missing sort of an extra 2.5 goals. And they did have, you're right, they had some good chances there in that Spurs game. And perhaps if obviously we weren't talking about Rashford or Bruno's misses, we'd both be a lot happier this week, and there'd be absolutely no issue with selling them. So I think it's probably just compounded for the fact those chances were so good. Their fixtures are a little bit mixed, I suppose. After Forest, they've got the Arsenal away game, got Brighton at home, which is going to be a difficult game now, especially from a clean sheet point of view. They've got Burnley away, which, to be honest, are still a bit of an unknown because they've only had that 1 game, and then Crystal Palace, who again are going to park the bus. So 2 of them sort of home fixtures in the next 5 are going against teams that sit like this classic low block everyone always mentions. They're going to be hard to break down, which, as we saw against Wolves, at the moment they're not in the mode to break down. So I feel like the team needs to change as well. I think and perhaps Rash needs to move back to the left.
Agree. Obviously Mount has been injured, been revealed, so he's not going to play. So there is going to be some sort of switch up, which I think is obviously needed. Sancho definitely should come in, and they did look better when he came on against Spurs, in my opinion anyway. And get Rashford on the left, Sancho as false 9. Possibly Eriksen / McTominay in there just to help Casemiro a bit. Let Bruno go forward. And they should be okay, but it's just they had a really bad start to the season last year, right? They lost 2 in a row. So, and then they started to perform. Rashford had the same thing. He blanked the first 2 games, and then started to come good. I think he got a 13 pointer in game week 3. So there is that could happen. But again, it's a low block team who are probably going to try and frustrate them. If it's 0-0 by half time, you're going to be worried again. So, are you thinking of selling? Or
Well, I'm thinking of me definitely not both, but even though the fixture is so plumb, I kind of look at Forest and I agree. I feel like from looking at their numbers the first 2 game weeks, they only conceded 0.84 xG against Arsenal, 0.55 against Sheffield United. So both quite low, under 1 obviously. Arsenal scored a world of goal in the first game Saka did. I don't know, I just feel that United are not best positioned at the moment to really sort of score a lot of goals, basically, and the double up is probably too much to have for them. So yeah, I probably, despite the fact that Bruno's expected points is a little bit higher, I do think I prefer Rashford. So he betters Bruno for expected points very slightly.
Really interesting.
Yeah, maybe it's like by 0.6 or something, so it's tiny. It's like 10.8 to 10.6, but he's had 7 shots in the box, which is double Bruno, and 2 big chances, which is double Bruno too. So, and 15 penalty box touches. I mean, we know that Bruno is sort of more of a creative midfielder than Rashford being an out-and-out striker, but FPL doesn't think that. FPL just puts them both as midfielders. So Rashford's 15 penalty box touches are only betted by 4 players so far this season. Bruno only has 6. So I kind of think, looking at that, although that Bruno is passing the eye test like he did at the end of last season, like his numbers aren't really there yet on Rashford's level in terms of sort of like clinical finishing. And if you look at someone like Wembo, who we'll talk about a little bit later, he is obviously, he's got penalties in his locker. He's got more. He's still classed as a midfielder like Bruno, but he's got like such a better lot of stats. Nearly top for shots in the box. He's in the top 5, which Bruno's not in for. And I don't know. I think that the money you could save on Bruno to perhaps move to a different midfielder or a different striker down the line is probably beneficial. It just seems a lot of money at the moment to invest in double United attack when they're not.
See, I think I prefer Bruno just because he's more involved in everything.
Yeah. I can see that argument
if he's
too.
going to be assisting, is it going to be to Rashford? But at the same time, again, like if Rashford, they're going to change it up. Is Rashford going to go for the left? Is he going to get as many chances? I don't know.
I think Bruno's got more routes to points with his corners, his free kick potential, and his penalties. Don't get me wrong, but from general open play, Rashford is a very small sample size. Rashford's looking better. Very, yeah.
I don't know.
I know.
Yeah, tough.
I'm minded to leave it another week. What about Shaw? Should we just talk about him briefly before moving on from United? Just so at the moment, I'd say he's not proving as good value for us as Anana, who's obviously 0.5 more expensive. United conceding savable shots, which is obviously beneficial to him. That said, he's had 6 key passes, 1 big chance created, so it could have been a different story if Bruno had scored at the weekend.
Yeah, that was from a sure assist, wasn't it?
Yeah, and he's in the top 10 for touches in the box and entries in the box of all defenders. So from attacking wise, it's the promising signs are there, but it's just whether they'll have many clean sheet games in the next 5 when you look at a team like City, for instance, who've maybe got 3 or 4.
For me, he's surviving this week just because there's other things to do.
Yeah.
But I think if I'm using 2 free transfers this week, he will be a transfer out next week to a City defender or just someone else.
Right.
Just because I don't want him against Arsenal and Burnley and Brighton. Really. So I think there's definitely better value out there. And yeah, there's plenty of good defences. So, yeah.
I think
and fixture swings, etc.
Yeah, I kind of think my defence now after I made that game with 1 transfer to get Chilwell in, I just kind of don't want to waste any more transfers messing around with the defenders. It just seems like there's such low upside at the minute, to be honest, when I don't know, dealing with more priority potential problem like Bruno and Rash seems a bit of a way to do it. Anyway, should we talk about City, move on to them? Just and come back to United when we talk about